It's over 253 days since I was last in the bush proper, in the Kgalagadi. And I'm finding that I'm forgetting a lot. I'm forgetting about the experience. I'm forgetting how to take a picture. I'm forgetting the names of bird species and things like that. That lack of constant familiarity is definitely taking its toll on me and my memory. And I guess that's why photography is important when one goes to these places, so that we can try to grasp it and remember. It's been a long time, so I thought I'd dig up some of the footage and try to make another video about it. But I've moved on since then. I've forgotten a lot of the things that happened. And even then, I struggled with the size of the project because I was there for quite a long time. And I took a lot of video and a lot of footage. And the problem and the struggle with making videos about wildlife photography, particularly over periods of time, is that not only does one forget what happened and the days meld into each other, the waiting melds into other periods of waiting, but you also have to look for the story in that material, and it's hard to find because so much of wildlife photography is moving from one sighting to another sighting, and all of these sightings are independent of each other. There's no single thread that binds them together except your own journey through them and your own drive through them. And that kind of story is a little bit boring, driving to each sighting and then talking about it. So how do you come up with something interesting and entertaining and memorable, particularly for someone like you who wasn't actually there with me on that journey? And I'm struggling with that. I don't deny it at the moment. Trying to come up with those threads and string them into some kind of pattern. And maybe I shouldn't beat myself up too much about it, because it's a hard thing to do, that puzzle, to pull it together. Anyway, I should probably try. And the way I started to do it was to pull the clips together. It's the way I always do it, to pull the clips together, to go through them, and then to try and identify these threads of story. The last episode I did was called Thirst, and I wanted to explore how thirst-driven behaviour made so many of the sightings possible out there, so many of the events possible. And then I thought this video I'd do something on camel thorn trees or hunger. But it turns out I don't have the footage, because I didn't have that story in mind before I went there. It's only that something that came to me later. And I could go the whole documentary approach with the voiceover, etc., etc. But I don't like that style necessarily. So it's been hard for me to pull something like that together. So then I started looking for quotes and that kind of thing, and sort of homilies and advice. And I came upon this quote, which was intriguing. It's by a conservationist filmmaker, a Frenchman named Yann Bertrand. If I pronounce that properly, the French people out there, please forgive my accent. And he says in this nice little quote, "The lions taught me photography. They taught me patience." And he goes on to say a lot about beauty and this, that, and the other. But I'm interested in those two sentences. Because if there's one thing that lions do teach us, it is photography. And the way they teach us it is through patience. Because lions have to be one of the laziest creatures on the planet. And they can afford to be, because they're such amazing killing machines with their social structure and hierarchy. That clannishness that lets them take down pretty much anything. And at the same time, because they're the apex predator of the Kgalagadi, they can afford to sleep. I think they're probably the only animal that can afford to relax when it sleeps. Everything else is on edge. So sitting there next to a lion is always an exciting experience, but at the same time it's an intensely boring experience, because they sleep and they sleep and they sleep some more, and then maybe for 1 or 2 hours a day they yawn a bit, get up, copulate, drink some water, and perhaps hunt. And that hunting happens mainly at night. So they definitely teach you patience. And they definitely teach you photography, because patience is such an intrinsic part of photography. Certainly wildlife photography, I think probably the most important part. It's better than gear, it's better than location. It's all about observation and patience. And there's millions of pictures, thousands of pictures out there that prove that observation and patience pays off. Even the humblest iPhone in the right hands with the right observation, the right timing, can take a great picture. So I was sitting there with these lions, learning the art of patience. And I learned something else at the same time. I learned that sometimes patience isn't enough, because you go out there 1,000 kilometers from home and you sit with these creatures and you wait and you wait and you wait, and sometimes you don't get anything, you don't get the shot. And that's what happened to me on this trip. I didn't get the shots. I came back with nothing. Nothing except the memory. And I didn't realize how important that memory was, because now, 253 days later, I'm sitting here in the midst of South Africa's COVID-19 lockdown, in another unimaginable situation, wondering when, if ever, I'll get the chance to sit with those lions again and experience the peace that they bring simply by sleeping.